What's up, guys? This is Zach from Miami Misplays. We're back at you with the rival deck Deku. We're only using 2 rival decks in this deck profile in order to make it easier for people, especially if you're just getting into the game. Maybe you're just bought those rival decks for you and your buddies to play. And if you've played other card games like Digimon or Yu-Gi-Oh!, maybe even Pokemon, you've learned that sometimes you need 2 or 3 copies of a starter deck in order to truly fulfill its main purpose and maybe get all those copies of those 2 of cards that you want 4 of and such. So this is with 2 rival decks only. No other cards are added into this. And let's get started by analyzing Midoriya. So Midoriya has 6 hand and 28 vitality. Very good, high vitality and good 6 card hand. Besides that, it's first in hands, not the best, but I do believe it is very good for mind games and to provoke your opponent to either block in a certain way that you want them to block. To play attacks, not block. So that way you can make sure you're getting your blocks in. Even if you can't lower their speed, if you know that you have the block, but you're missing a certain, either direction, either up or down, you could at least force them or fear them out of going into that and making it either easier to block that one with maybe a mid block that may be a 3 cost or such. But it says name an attack zone. If your rival's next attack this turn matches that zone, it gets -3 speed. So again, that's how we can control their attacks and try to help us block so we don't have to take too many damage or it's not too difficult to block. And more perfect blocks if possible. And then his second enhance is once per turn, discard your hand, your punch attack gets +10 damage. So as you can tell, that's definitely our finisher. That's the goal of the deck. We're trying to go in there and finish them for a very strong 10 damage. And most likely kill them because there are other cards that will boost them up. And of course, you wear them down a little bit, but once they're at like 15 HP, especially those guys with only 20 HP, they're in the red zone. They're in the red zone and they're ready to go down. All right, so let's start off with the foundations. Our first set of foundations is Recovery Girl's Kiss, 4 copies. It's a 0/5, 2 mid block, and flip gain 1 health. It's nothing too crazy. It is pretty ordinary. It's a good block, good for just expanding how many foundations you're trying to play in the first 2 turns. And then healing, honestly, isn't too common in this game. So having a nice little heal for 1, doing that 4 times is nice. And I think it's a good card in general, just to cover that. That's pretty much 1 full attack if you can get these off, possibly. Or if you half block something, you can pretty much kill yourself for that. Now, we're going to go into Bonds of Friendship. Now, this is not the best card in the deck. This is probably the card I dislike the most, but I can't argue with its stats. It is a 1, it is a 6 check, and it is a 1 block modifier high. Enhance, flip, this Fury attack gets -3 damage. Now, it is good that it minuses the damage. That does, of course, these rival decks were meant to counter each other, Bakugo and Midoriya, but I will say meta-wise, Shigaraki is a Fury deck, and so is Nomu with some, well, Nomu can see some Fury cards. So the fact that we do have some things to help counter against Fury isn't the worst. And you most likely will see a Shigaraki here or there, and if not a Shigaraki, maybe a Bakugo at least in your local area while people are playing with the foundations. The rivals. All right. Now, moving forward from there, we've got Self-Sacrifice. This is, again, a 1 and then a 5 to check, and then a 1 low block modifier. So, again, pretty good block. And then Enhance, destroy 1 foundation. This attack gets plus or -1 damage. In play testing with this deck, I did find that the plus and -1 damage wasn't too important that I would want to destroy a foundation, but there were times where it did save me. Maybe my foundations were committed by a rival's effect. It's not the worst card to use, but it's definitely something that I'm iffy about. But that low block 1 modifier, I've said it before, those are kind of rare, so I'm happy to be playing this card at 4 just to get that off. Now we've got Note Taking. This is a 1/5, 2 block low, and then flip, your punch attack gets +2 speed. I love speed in this deck because it already has a way to boost its power, above and beyond. And now with this, we can compensate for that speed as well, increasing those chances to get that full damage in or shut down your opponent, so that way they don't have a way to block or get around that damage. Now we've got 2 copies of Gifts from Mom. Enhance, discard 1 momentum, your punch gets +3 damage. I don't find it too necessary to give myself the +3 damage, but it's there again for that extra in case I don't want to discard my hand, but I am trying to go for a kill. So we played 2 of them. It does discard 1 momentum, which I don't think I burn any momentum with any other effects, so it's not harmful to me if I use that, because I don't believe there's any like powerfuls or EXs in this build. And then it's a 2-block mid, so decent block. Now this is probably my favorite foundation, which is Good Impression. Of course it has the worst block modifier because it's good. In my opinion, it's really good. But it is a 2 and then a 2 difficulty, 5 check, enhance, flip. Your next punch attack gets -1 difficulty. This is what allows you to start spamming some of your attacks, especially after maybe your first 2. I'll usually use this off on the second one, so that way I can get my 3rd tech in for pretty cheap, or even my 4th tech, depending on how many I have of these. And then besides that, it is a high block 3, which, like I said, isn't that great. But I do love that because it does allow me to spam. And this is probably everyone's favorite meta card. We've got Passing the Torch. I was so happy to get a hold of these. And just to let you guys know, if you haven't bought the rival decks, the rival decks do come with 4 in each. So if you get 2 rival decks, you have 8 of these, and a good amount, to spread out between your decks. Now, Passing the Torch is a 2/5, and then it says Enhance, Commit, either draw 1 card. So you're either getting a draw for sure, or if you have no cards in your hand, draw 2. Obviously, this is definitely in reflection to Midoriya's ability to discard your hand and get +10 damage. Then this card allowing yourself to draw 2 more cards, so you're not left sitting in the wind on your opponent's turn with no cards in hand. And notice this can be activated on your opponent's turn as well. So if you ended up blocking and have no cards in hand, you can definitely go ahead, trigger this to draw 2 cards, or just draw 1 card, especially on the first turn you play it. Maybe you played it in the very first or second turn of the game, and then your opponent's doing the first attack. You could at least trigger it and get an extra draw right then and there, if need be. But that is Passing the Torch as a card I'm super excited and happy to have. And now, in combination with the Recovery Girl's Kiss that gives you +1, we have 4 copies of Rigorous Training. This is a 2/5, and it says response after you build this card, gain 2 health. And then it is a 2 mid block, so it's great, decent size mid. And then of course, because of this, you're gonna be able to heal more. So that's already 8 damage that can heal from here and 4 over there. That's 12 damage that you can heal yourself. That's almost half your HP. So it is a little annoying playing against Deku because he does have a decent amount of healing. Now we'll get into the attacks, the bread and butter. There were a lot of attacks that come in the Deku deck, so you do have a lot of options to pick from. I believe there's only 1 attack I'm not playing at all, and then you'll see the ones that I've decided to play at 3 and the ones I've decided to play at 4. At beginning, we'll start with Reverse Throw, which I'm 50-50 about. I like it, but at the same time, I'm just like, ugh. But Reverse Throw is a 5/3. Enhance, if this attack deals 5 or more damage, draw 1 card. It is a 2 speed mid, so it is easy to block, and it has 5 damage. So most of the time, obviously, if your opponent does any type of block, it's going to go in and most likely just hit for 3 damage, and you may not be able to get that draw. And you could expect that. Now, what this does also help do is either pretty much make your opponent decide, hey, am I blocking this now and making future attacks more difficult to block in order to, be prepared for that time where you're going to drop that 10 damage and discard your hand, or do I give my opponent the 5 damage and to draw a card? Most of the time, I think I found everyone to block, but again, depending on the opponent, they may be prepared to be able to discard that block and get it out of the way, or such in a way that they're not too damaged by this card. But again, it is something that can help you set up by forcing them to block early, so that way your later attacks, you've either worn down their foundations that are committed, and then come in again with that 10 damage to try and finish the game. And then again, this is a charge. This is a throw. So you can also just pump this up by 10, give it 15, and then no matter what, you're hitting for 7. 8. You're hitting for 8 with that, no matter what. So that's also a very good upside of being able to discard your hand on that, in case you just need to get in that last 8 damage. Now I've got 3 copies of Setup Strike. When I first played this deck, I loved this card a lot. But I think I just loved it because at that one situation, it worked out and helped me win the game. But it's a 4/3, 2 mid block, and then it says enhance, discard 1 momentum. This attack gets +3 speed, and then just enhance, your next attack gets +3 speed. So again, this is setting you up. Now what I've actually really found to do with this is that I can set up my flash attacks because the flash attack actually has some decent damage and some okay speed. Giving this a +3 speed initially on a flash makes that flash much more powerful than it was before. But this is an up attack, so it is a little harder to block. It is only 3 speed though and 5 damage. Now we'll get into my favorite attacks in the set, for sure. Future Charge. I love this card. I'm always going to say I love this card. It's just good to combo off. I hold it in hand a lot until I have at least 2, and then possibly just between the 2 and a third one, I can collect them all and do some heavy damage and have a lot of cards in hand. So it's 4/3, 3 speed, 4 damage, and then it says in hand, draw 1 card for each copy of Future Charge in your card pool. So usually, a lot of times if I open a hand and I end up having this attack, I try to keep this one, keep the other 5 to be foundations. And I kind of keep this card in my hand for a turn or 2 just to see if I can run into a second Future Charge, because then at least at that point I can trigger and draw 3 cards off of 2, or possibly if I get the third one off of one of them, then I can draw another 3 cards, and I've drawn 6 cards off of 3 cards. At that point, I have +3 cards in my hand. I have infinite attacks. It's definitely a very powerful card late game as well, and that's why I like to hold on to it, because then it lets me build up my hand, and I essentially have my own way of having a whole bunch of different type of blocks to make sure I'm okay, as long as I haven't tapped too much from playing these. But that's why we have the those cards that give -1 difficulty to punch attacks, such as this one, and it is a 4 cost, so it is cheap to play in comparison to your other 5 cost attacks. Now you've got what I was talking about earlier. We've got Delaware Smash. This is the flash attack that says just 4 damage, 4 speed mid and 6 damage. So it's a heavy damage. And then we're giving it, if we can set it up with that setup strike, give it another +3 speed, that's 7 speed, 6 damage. Again, very powerful card. And then we have the +2 block modifier mid. So again, a decent block as well. And now, I'll get into actually the rares for the attacks, because the last attack is my favorite attack. So Determined Victory Smash. This is a 5 speed, 5 damage, 5 to play, 3 check, and it enhances. Add this card to your hand after it resolves. Only playable if this attack's damage was 15 or greater. So what's good about this is you can discard your whole hand, boost it to 15. Now, whether it hits or not doesn't matter. Just as after it resolves, you can add it back to your hand. And then, not only that, with passing the torch and cards like that, you can add 2 more cards. With that, there's 3 cards back into your hand after playing this card and discarding your whole hand and giving yourself blocks for the future turn, or to continuously try to attack again with this card if you have the the foundations to commit for this. Very powerful card. You only get 1 in a rival deck, so there are only 2 in here. I would most likely play 3 of these and maybe lower one of the other cards down by 1, but don't underestimate this card. But with 2, you get away with it. I will say it's not something you super need early either way, but it's good to have at least 3 copies of, especially in case you check one. And then Heroic Strike, my favorite card in the deck. This is Future Charge is my favorite, but this is probably, in my opinion, the best card in the deck. This is a 4. It's only 4 to play, 3 check. It's got 4 speed, and it's an up attack, so that's good. And it's 4 damage, and it's a 2 block. This card's enhance is your rival commits 1 foundation for each punch attack in your card pool. Now, my favorite part is that it doesn't have the word stun, so things that specifically stay stunned can't trigger off of this, but of course there are a lot of cards that do trigger off of just being committed. We went over that with our Jiro deck and a couple other decks that I play. This is for each punch you play. Now, this is another card, again, I like to store up, because if I'm going to go ahead and play maybe 2 or possibly 3 of these, I have now committed between 2 to 3 to 6 foundations on my opponent's side. And then again, this is definitely, in my opinion, this is the finisher. This is the one that's going to get you in there. Maybe hit 1 or 2 of these might hit for a little bit of damage, but it's gotten to the point where you're going to commit most of their things. If they decide to block, they probably committed at least 1 or 2 foundations, unless they had a really good check or they dropped the speed or something. And then on top of that, you set yourself up for that finishing move to do the +10 damage. And when all their things are tapped, and I've definitely abused this card in multiple games, and this set up specifically with just 2 to 3 of these, and then any other 4th attack is what gets me there. And thanks to passing a torch to draw those extra attacks I can, or other cards in general that I just keep in hand, because I will say I stockpile attacks with this deck. But that is Midoriya Izuku. Midoriya Izuku. I hope you guys like the deck. I will probably come back with a Bakugo deck profile with the Bakugo cards in the rival deck, so you guys could make 2 powerful rival deck cards that I think you could take to a local tournament and be able to handle yourself well in those tournaments. Other than that, guys, I want to say thank you for watching my videos. I'm glad I'm back and able to make these videos again. I will be coming back with some Digimon content next week when we get our BT6 case. Probably might do a case opening with a team for a video, and hoping to pull that Omnimon that comes in that set. But enough about Digimon, because this portion is about my hero. You guys take care, and I'll be back at you again with new content and next week's tournament.